Okay, so let's again recall back the induction steps and we'll do few examples. So tell me what are the, so let me divide it two parts. And so method of finite induction, let's recall method of induction. So Sn, we want to show that, show statement Sn is true for all n greater or equal to n naught. And now say me what is the step 1. So anyone can say me what's the step 1?
Base case.
So what I have to prove?
Verify for P of 1. Verify for the base case. It may be 1 or 2. Whatever base.
So base case is what it now? What is the base case now? N?
N naught.
N naught. So what you want to prove here?
You have to prove that it's true for N naught. The statement is true.
So what is this? S of N naught is true. So that, okay, let's write it properly. So that S of N naught is true. Yes? Yes. This is the first step. So that what is the second step?
Assumption.
This is the induction hypothesis. This is the base case. So what is there in the induction hypothesis? Assume that it is true for, you can assume n, also you can assume more. You can assume that it is true for S of n naught plus 1, S of n naught plus true. Assume that S of n naught plus 1, so on up to S of n are true. What is step 3? So this is the induction. Just you are inducting. So what you prove here? What you do here? So that S of n is true using induction hypothesis, using the step 2, assuming that, sorry, S of n plus 1 is true, assuming induction hypothesis. So what is the precaution you have to take here? That what is the another step I wrote in one other statement I wrote in step 3? That this proof must work when you prove for S of n naught plus 1 using S of n naught is true. This step must work. This is a note while using the induction hypothesis, must work when we prove S of n naught plus 1 is true, assuming S of n naught is true. I'll give you an example when this is not. If you don't see this is not happening, then your proof is wrong. Okay. Okay. So these are the induction steps. Now again I'll do an example, and I'll give an example to you to do on the board. So example, we'll do some exercises from that sheet. I'll do this 2 power n. That's easy one, right? So let's 2 power n is greater or equal to 1 plus n. So how do you prove it?
First you have to take the base.
So what is the base case? What you have to prove? Prove for all n greater or equal to 1. So what is the base case?
For 1.
So what is s of 1? 2 is greater or equal to 1 plus 1, which is true, right? So assume
S of n is 2 to the power
s of n is true, or s1 s2 up to s1 is true. What is s of n plus 1?
2 into 2 power n.
Okay, what does this mean? So before that, that is that 2 power n is greater or equal to 1 plus n, that you assumed. So what is s of n plus 1? 2 power n plus 1 is greater or equal to 1 plus n plus 1, which is 2 plus n. Now what is this? How do you prove this one? So 2 power n plus 1 is equal to 2 times 2 power n. Okay, I can write 2 power n is greater or equal to 1 plus 2 into 1 plus n, which is greater or equal to 2 plus n. So this is how you proved. So by method of induction, Sn is true for all n. So here what you did, 2 power n plus 1 is 2 into 2 power n, right? And 2 power n by induction hypothesis, it is greater or equal to 1 plus n. So I wrote that 2 power n, I wrote 1 plus n, and this greater or equal to.
We are multiplying 2 on both.
Right, yeah, because multiplication by a positive number doesn't change the inequality. Okay, so 2 times 1 plus n. This is greater or equal to 2 plus n.
Where do we get the 2 plus n? We have to
No, this is 2 times 2 plus 2n, but 2 plus 2n is greater or equal to 2 plus n, because the difference is n, which is a positive number, right? Okay, so make all the steps clear on your mind. So now it is clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, so so we proved that by method of induction, S of n is true for all n greater or equal to 1. Okay, so here is this, and now I will give some examples to prove.
So any chocolate?
Yes, okay, you'll get it after that. I didn't bring. Okay, so off. Yep, off. So what? Suppose I'll assume A, B are positive or non-negative at least. I'll go over them. So can you recall what is that? Suppose assume that A, B greater than 0, and assume that A. Okay, so assume that A greater than B greater than 0. Okay, and we want to find GCD of AB. Want to find GCD of AB. So what we'll do, I'll first divide A by B and write it as this is equal to Q1B plus R1. What is the condition on R1? From R1 should be less than B and greater equal to 0. B equal to Q2 R1 plus R2. Then you take these two numbers. Okay, the new remainder and the smaller one from the previous step, B and R1. So B equal to Q2 R1 plus R2. What's the condition on R2? Less than R1. You carry on this step. Suppose the step ends at, you get some stage Rn minus 2 equal to Q times n times Rn minus 1 plus R times n, where Rn is greater or equal to 0, less than Rn minus 1. And suppose the next is Rn divides Rn minus 1. So Rn, so Rn minus 1 equal to Qn plus 1 times Rn plus 0. So this is the point where we stop. And we conclude that GCD of AB equal to, what is this? R of n, right? Okay. So these are the steps. Can you say that why these steps will end always? If I go on, why is it ending? Remainder lesser than the divisor, very good. So the number we started with is we started with A and B. A is, we assume that A is bigger than B. We can also assume A is greater or equal to B, doesn't matter. If it is equal to, then first step, yeah. So A is greater or equal to B. B is greater than R1. R1 is greater than, R2 is greater than, so on. So Rn minus 1 is greater than Rn. So B is some number. Say B is like 1000. Then since these are strict inequality, you can maximum go 1000 steps down. And at one stage you will get 1 or 0, right? So because all of them are positive. So all of them are positive. So this number of steps are finite. So you will always end this process. It won't go on all the times. Because each time you are decreasing the residue. Each time you are decreasing this B, you decrease to R1, R1 you decrease to R2, R2. So you are decreasing something. So when you started, say, any big number, 5 lakh, say, then you will end at some time, at least after 5 lakh steps. Okay? So now we'll prove this this statement. Let's say this theorem. So theorem is this, and we have this. Then GCD of AB is Rn. How do I prove it? So let's keep these things out. Proof will be by following lemma. So what is that lemma? If A equal to QB plus R, then GCD of AB, R is whatever, need not be residue. If you write it in this form, then GCD of AB is equal to GCD of BR. So can you prove this? Who can prove this? You can prove this? Yeah, come and try. Okay, I'll just do it because we have also less time. So what is the proof? Suppose D equal to GCD of AB. Okay, then D divides B and D divides A certainly, which implies D divides A, D divides B, and D divides A minus QB, because D divides A and D divides B. So D will divide A minus QB, which is equal to R, right? So this implies, what does this imply? D divides GCD of B and R.
So D has to be
Yeah, so you know that D is now GCD of B and R. Now we want to show that GCD of so I want to show that this one is the greatest common divisor. QB plus R, C divides S, so C divides C. Can you prove that GCD of B and R divides GCD of AB? How is it?
Sir, we can substitute that in AB.
Yeah. So now you want to show that. So suppose D prime is equal to GCD of B and R, then D prime divides R and D prime divides B. This implies D prime divides QB plus R, because D prime divides B and R, and D prime divides B. This implies D prime divides A and D prime divides B. So D prime divides GCD of A and B. So what does he conclude? GCD of AB equal to GCD of BR.
How D prime divides QB plus R?
Because D prime divides B and D prime divides R. Q is fine, anything multiple. D prime divides QB because D prime divides B, and D prime will divide R.
So if we add both, it will divide.
Yeah, because you take that common factor here, because this is D prime times something, this is D prime times something, you take the D prime out still. Okay, so this one is the. So how do you prove the theorem? Proof of theorem now. So yeah, so what is the proof of theorem now? GCD of AB equal to GCD of BR1, which is equal to GCD of R1, R2, so on up to GCD of Rn and 0, which is equal to Rn. Right? Any number with 0 has GCD, that number. So this is equal to Rn. So Rn is equal to the GCD of AB. Okay, clear? Okay, so let's do a problem. I'll do a problem, and based on this problem, I'll give you a problem. So
Divides A and D prime divides G. How does D prime divide GCD of A,
D prime divides A, because what is GCD? GCD is the maximum number that can divide the both. If something else divides both the number, then that number has to divide that maximum number. That's the in the definition of GCD. I gave this, right? So that's in the definition of GCD. So this part is done. Now we'll do an example, and we'll conclude some more things, and we'll do a problem. Okay, so example. Suppose you want to find GCD of 21 and 12. 3, but we will do it in Euclid's algorithm. 21 equal to 1 times 12 plus 9. Then 12 equal to 1 times 9 plus 3. And 9 equal to 3 times 3 plus 0. So this is the first step, second step, third step. Okay, so from here we got GCD of 21, 12 equal to 3. But I'll do something, now we'll do what? We'll try to express this 3 in terms of 21 times something and 12 times something.
3 into 7 and
3 equal to 12 minus 9 from step 2, right? 3 equal to 12 minus 9. Now 9 equal to what? 21 minus 12. Minus 21 minus 12. So what do you get? 2 times 12 minus 21. So for to solve, so 12 times x plus 21 times y equal to 3 has solution. What is the solution? X equal to 2 and y equal to minus 1. Okay. Here is another thing. Suppose we want to solve, ax plus by equal to some c. Okay. Let GCD of AB equal to D. Because from this step I wrote 3 equal to 2 times 12 minus 21. So 2 is x and minus 1 is y. So now suppose you want to solve this thing, and suppose GCD of AB equal to D. Then what is the relationship between D and C?
C can be expressed in terms of D.
So what is the relationship between D and C?
D divides C.
D divides C, because D divides A and D divides B. So D has to divide C. Then D divides C. Okay? So what you get? A by D times x plus B by D times y equal to C by D. Okay. So we want to solve this equation, and I will multiply D, then I have the same x and y will work for this solution. So it is sufficient to solve this equation. Now how do I solve this equation? From Euclid's, now here is a statement. From Euclid's algorithm, okay, capital E, Euclid's algorithm, the example we did, we got that if D equal to GCD of AB, we can find x and y such that
Ax plus By is equal to D.
Ax plus By equal to D. This is the example we did, how you have to do that. We'll go from last step to the first step, substituting each remainder by the previous two. Okay. So from Euclid's algorithm, this is a corollary. You got that Ax plus By equal to D. Okay. Now there is a small lemma. If D equal to GCD of AB, then no, I will come to that. Then x and y need not be 1.
No, they don't have to be 1.
So GCD of A by D and B by D equal to 1.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So why is it so?
Sir, it's a self-evident, sir. Otherwise, D won't be the greatest common divisor.
We need a proof.
Yes, sir. If
If something divides both the things,
so then
then C times D will divide A and B.
So then that will be the common.
That will be greater than. So proof.
Proof by contradiction.
Yeah, if C greater than 1 such that C divides A by D and C divides B by D, then D times C divides A and D times C divides B, and what else? And D divides DC clearly, which is a contradiction to the definition of GCD, right? Because we know that any other number D divides DC, but since D is GCD, so D, but so DC divides A and DC divides B. D divides DC, that is obvious because this is D times C. But since D is the GCD, so D has to divide, so any number dividing both the number has to divide D. By the definition of GCD, DC divides D. So C equal to 1, right? Because D divides DC, both are positive, and DC divides D, so C has to be 1. D equal to DC, that means, which is a contradiction. So this contradiction proves that this has to be 1. Okay. Okay. So now what is the GCD of A by D and B by D? 1. Okay. So what we will do? So let's see this something problem 1 something. We'll say this some problem. So the equation we have to solve. So in the problem, okay, this is not really a problem. Yeah. So in the problem, what we have, A by D and B by D has GCD 1. Okay. So by Euclid's algorithm, there exists x0 and y0. By Euclid's algorithm, there exist x0 and y0 such that A by D times x0 plus B by D times y0 equal to 1. Now what you will do? Now we want to solve that equation. What should we do now? We'll multiply both x0 and y0 by C by D, right? Then we'll solve that equation. So A by D times x0 times C by D plus B by D times y0 times C by D equal to C by D. So from here, this is the solution, which also implies that A times x0 times C by D plus B times y0 times C by D is equal to C. So what are the solutions now?
x0 C by D and y0 C by D.
So solutions are x0 C by D and y0 C by D. Clear? So suppose I give an equation to solve. First do it for the GCD as we did for that 21 and 12 like this. Then you multiply whatever that's not in the GCD. Okay. And you get the solution like this. So all of you understood this method? Raise your hand. Understood this method? Everyone? No? Which part you didn't get?
That by Euclid from that first system I didn't get.
So by Euclid's algorithm, I gave an example how do you get from Euclid's algorithm. So by this you can get this x0 y0 so that this is equal to GCD, and GCD is 1.
Okay.
So I write 1 as this. Then you multiply and get back x and up to get to A and B. So after this I multiplied C by D here. So this is, I keep it in bracket and then cancel all these D's. So I have a solution to this equation. So x equal to x0 times C by D and y equal to y0 times C by D is a solution of this equation. So everyone understood? Clear? Understood? So now there is an why is? Where? Oh, here, because DC divides D and D divides DC. This means, how do you say that? Suppose C divides A and A divides C. How does it mean? C equal to some A, sorry, CK1 equal to A and AK2 equal to C. Now, what you do is put this value of AK2 into C. So I get A times K2 times K1 equal to A. K2 times K1 equal to 1, and K2, K1 are both positive integers, and so their product is 1, so they must be 1. So C equal to A.
The DC divides C, we just take it.
So DC equal to D. That means you cancel the D, you get C equal to 1. Okay, so this is clear to everyone, right? Now the problem. Okay, so there is a prize on this. Let's see who does it first. Solve the following. What is that problem? 58 equal to x times 754 plus y times 5858. This is not very difficult. Yeah. Off. No, not here. Keep it.
Sir, chalk.
So explain everyone how you got all the process. The process also, just recap how we solved it.
So we have over here as 58 is equal to x into 754 and plus y into 5858. So you find the GCD of 754 and 5858. So we get the GCD of 754 and 5858 is equal to 58 using Euclid's algorithm. After that, we divide this whole equation by 58. So you get it as like 58 is equal to x into 754 plus y into 5858, the whole divided by 58, which is equal to 1, that can be written as 1 is equal to 13x plus 101y. And now to find x and y, we know that we need to find the GCD of 13 and 101. So again we use Euclid's algorithm and we write down it like this. 101 is equal to 13 into 7, which is 91 plus 10. And 13 is equal to 10 into 1 plus 3. 10 is equal to 3 times 3 plus 1. And 1 is equal, 3 is equal to 1 into 3 plus 0. So 1 is the GCD which we get. So GCD of 13 and 101 is 1. Now working backwards, we get it as 1 is equal to 10 minus 3 into 3, which is again equal to 10 minus 3 into 13 into 10. We can write 3 as 13 minus 10, sorry, 13 minus 10, which we get from here. Okay. And
They are not able to see.
okay. So then we can again write this as 4 into 10 minus, when we when you simplify it, you get it as 4 into 10 minus 3 into 13. We can write 10 as 101 minus 13 into 7. So we write it as 4 into 101 minus 13 into 7, again minus 3 into 13.
Just erase that line.
Okay. Minus 3 into 13. And then you open the brackets and you get it as 4 into 101 minus 31 into 13, because it becomes 28, 4 7s are 28, 28 minus 3 is 31, so minus 31. So the x coefficient of x will be, so the value of x will be 4 because x is, sorry, x will be minus 28, minus 31 because, okay, x naught will be equal to minus 31 and y naught will be equal to 4 because okay, 13 x naught plus 101 y naught, and if you verify you will get it 31. So should I verify that?
So why is that solution of the previous one?
This one, why is it the solution of that one? Because if you simplify this equation using the GCD of 754 and 5858, you will get that you will get this equation as you can represent it in the small,
So
mean
you
like
can
this.
just multiply 58.
58, okay, fine, you can verify it by multiplying 58. This is just done to simplify the process. Instead of finding out for 58 is equal to 754x, it's because if the numbers are bigger, you will take more time, and if it's smaller, like you can do it in an easier way. So 58. So it's just used to simplify it.
Okay, so is it clear to everyone? So next we'll see some congruences, some properties of congruences. I am not giving you any break today. But you have to get something, like you have to go to downstairs and collect some. So, okay, so here are congruences. This is to, congruence is to find out what is the residue of a number, residue when you divide it by another number. So if a equal to bq plus r, then we can write it as a is congruent to r mod b. Here q need not be the quotient, r need not be the remainder. But this is for any q and r. If this equation holds, then I can write a is congruent to r mod b. In general, we define a congruent to c mod b if and only if b divides a minus c, which is also same as this. It's exactly same as this equation, which is if and only if a minus c equal to some qb, or a equal to c plus qb. Okay, so this is how we define this one. This congruence actually first defined by Gauss when he was Carl Friedrich Gauss. So he was a German mathematician and one of the greatest mathematician ever on, and he wrote a book in around the age of 18, and he solved many theorems, and there also he wrote about these congruences, and there we got the congruences. We got congruences from Gauss. So, and these congruences, they satisfy certain properties. These properties helps us in doing a lot of calculation more easily. Finding residue makes it very easy. First of all, I'll say what it does actually, what the division algorithm says from the congruence is that it says that if I have a number b, start with some number b greater than 0, then the set Z can be written as disjoint union. Like you can write here disjoint union, can be written disjoint union of the numbers that first gives the residue 0. If a number gives a residue 0 and gives a residue 1, they cannot be same. One same number cannot give two residues because residue is unique, that we proved, right? And they vary between 0 and b minus 1. So you can write it all these numbers 0, b, 2b, minus b, minus 2b, and so on. Then there are this set each don't have any element common with this set. 1, b plus 1, 2b plus 1, minus b plus 1, minus 2b plus 1, and so on. This set, these two sets doesn't have any element common with when you add 2 each of them. And so on, you go up to adding b minus 1. So what is that you get b minus 1? You get b minus 1 added to 0, then 1, no, sorry, 2b minus 1, then 3b minus 1, so on. And here what you get? Minus b, then you add b minus 1, you get minus 1. Then minus 2b, you add b minus 1, you get minus b minus 1, and so on. So up to this set. So these are the disjoint of, this is for residues 0, 1 up to b minus 1. So and any number, any integer is from one of this set. So you classify any number in one of these sets. Okay. Clear? Clear? Yeah. So that's what the this gives. So when you do these congruences, you just have to find out in which class the number belongs, whether it belongs to here or any among any of them. You don't keep track of what number in this set. You just find out which set is it. Is it the residue 1 set or residue 2 set or residue R set? So that makes the calculation easy because you are looking at very small number of sets. And to calculate this, done to do some operations with the congruences, there are some properties we'll see. So these properties makes our calculation more fast. So properties, what is the most of congruences? So what is the most natural property, most obvious property? A congruence to A, mod B, right? This you can prove because A minus A is 0 and B divides 0, anything divides 0. This is called reflexivity. We say that congruence is reflexive because of this property. If A congruence to B, okay, I'll write it mod n. Now I'll put anything in mod, I'll write it as n. Okay, sorry for that. A congruence to B mod n and B congruence to C mod n, then this implies A congruence to C mod n. Okay, so I left one property. So this is called transitive because the property of start A to B and then it's transmitted to B to C. So okay, so this has to be 3 and there is something 2 in between, I forgot, which is if A congruence to B mod n, this implies B congruence to A mod n. It doesn't matter which side of congruence you write because A minus B is divisible by C and that means B minus A is also divisible by n. Okay, then these are all, so these two are obvious. This one can you prove? Anyone who can prove this? A congruence to B mod n and B congruence to C mod n, then A congruence to C mod n. You can prove it? Can you prove? Just.
So like A, B, C all belong to the same set as
Exactly. Yeah,
so they
nice.
are the same form, so you can easily prove.
Yeah, because A and B belongs to the same set, B and C belongs to the same set. All of three of them belongs to the same set. So that proves it. So then the fourth property, if A congruence to B mod n, this is a linear and additive and multiplicative, and B congruence to C mod n, then I can write, oh sorry, A comes to B mod n and C congruence to D mod n. Sorry. So C congruence to D mod n. This implies A plus C congruence to B plus D mod n. Also, this also implies why?
A and B are in the same set and C and D are.
No, that doesn't prove it. So how do you prove it?
A minus B are in the same form. A minus B is 0 mod and C add them, they'll form. Sir, A minus B is, for example, A is some 2B plus some B.
So you have to show this is a property of these sets that if you
Sir, you can easily sir, A is in the form of n plus k, sir.
yeah
B is also in the form of some what?
exactly
xl plus k.
yeah. So you are getting all this that you write B minus A equal to n times k1, D minus C equal to n times k2 and prove this property. Okay, I am not doing it. So what does this means? That if you take elements from any two sets and add them or multiply them, it doesn't matter which element you choose, it will lie in the same set. Right? If you choose from any two elements, any element from A and any element from B, capital B is the set, or capital A1 and capital A2 the set, and suppose A plus B lies in capital A3, then it doesn't matter which A and B you choose from A1 and capital A1 and capital A2. Any A plus is lying in the same set. And A plus C congruence to B plus D mod n. So this you proof is just okay. So you just write B minus A equal to nk1, C minus D equal to nk2, and then try to prove it. Right? So write then try to multiply your and proof and prove. So this is the exercise. Okay, so this way you prove it, and just now we proved something which is also a nice property. No, that you proved. You proved something just before. Exactly. Yeah. If A congruence to B mod n, A power k congruence to B power k mod n. That you proved, right? That you proved by induction.
So, but the effective remainder will be different. It need not be B power k itself.
Effective remainder is different, but whatever so the remainder of A power k and B power k are same, whatever the k is. This means that it doesn't say that. It says that independent of k, remainder of A power k and B power k are same. Okay. Now with this property, I will do an example. Okay, and then I will give you a problem. Let's do this problem. I am erasing this bit. So everyone understood the congruences? If you understood, raise your hand. Not? Understood? Okay, so this is the problem I will do. The problem is we will find out the GC, find remainder of 19400 power 700 on division by 19. This is the problem we will do. But do you understand how big is this number?
Yes.
How big is it?
Some
So
5 into 700 digits.
do you think how many dust particles are there in this chalk?
So one, sir, answer one.
Answer 1?
Yes, sir.
Very good, but we'll see. So do you think how many dust particles are there? Lot of, right? How many dust particles are there in this room? In Chennai? So in our world? So this number is something more than 7,000 times the number of atoms in our universe. Okay, so this number is more than 7,000. So 19400 power 700 is more than 7,000 times. 7,000 times the number of particles in our universe. Yeah, we'll come to that. I'm just trying to say that how this is useful. And by this congruences, the congruences you knew now, by this magical properties, you just do it in a 1 minute, you calculate the residue. You don't have to calculate the number, you don't have to do anything. By just using those properties, we'll calculate the residue just in 1 minute. Okay? So, and you're calculating a number that you can't even practically write. 7,000 times. 7,000 times. I mean, you know the number of atoms is upper bound is 10 power 100, and so so this is something much bigger number, and that bigger number you're finding the residue. How do you know the yeah, so you know from the Big Bang theory and so on, right? How do you know that number of particles is? No, you have a upper bound. No, you can count it actually. You can, number of atoms in the universe, you can count it. Yeah. So, we don't know many stars and galaxies. Still, this number is much bigger than all those numbers. Okay. So we'll see. Okay, this example I'll do. I'll give you an exercise, and that will be the end of this our class in number theory. So okay, so let's divide this very big number by 19, and we'll get the residue. So what I'll do, I'll just do some small tricks, and I'll find out. I see this, there is a 19 here. So I write it is 19 into, what I write, 194 into 100 I'll write. Okay, I'll just see what is the residue. So 194 is congruent to, 194,000 is congruent to this, doesn't matter. And this is congruent to, this is congruent to 4. I wrote that property. A congruent to B mod n and C congruent to D mod n, then AC congruent to BD mod n. So this is A, this is C, and this is congruent to 4. And this is congruent to 19 into 5j, 95. This is congruent to 5. Which is congruent to 20, 20, which is 19 plus 1, which comes to 1 mod 19. This everyone get? Yes? Did you get? Okay, so this proves. Now, so since this is congruent to 1 mod 19, and by the last property, property 5, I prove that 194,000 power 700 is congruent to 1 mod 19. So we proved it even less than, you can show this bit in less than half a minute, like few seconds you can solve this. You can solve a number such a big in less than few seconds, and that's the power of congruences. So so you should learn this congruence much more clearly. So the practice exercise is, find remainder or residue, whatever, remainder of 256 power 379 divided by 31. So, so this is the exercise bit, and we'll end it over.